Chamber of Commerce, member connection, and here I go again. I'm excited. Working with the members of the chamber is exciting. It's what I get to do every day. And working with this particular individual, the new golfer, is even more exciting. We get to go play golf together every now and then. But I'm with Dr. Delvena Thomas. How are you?
Hey. What an introduction.
Hey, we're keeping it real,
We always do.
Yeah, we're real here at the chamber. I always keep it real, and we keep it real with one another.
Yeah.
But Brainlove.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my baby.
That's your baby.
Yes.
But before we get into Brainlove, I'm a former airborne paratrooper, and you are still engaged in the U.S. military. Talk about that. Tell us about you. Who's Dr. Delvena Thomas?
Dr. Delvena is Thomas. Sometimes I leave out the last name because it's a slave name. And so I've been considering changing my name to something different, something that's more connected with my actual past and my heritage. But so I'm someone who's undeniably just present. I'm always straightforward. I'm always the person who's going to tell you things the way that they are, including my own patients. I don't, bull crap with my patients, and the same thing with my family and friends. So my mother used to tell me when I was younger, you are such a free spirit, girl. You are such a free spirit. I was a little girl in elementary school, and I didn't know what that meant until later when I looked it up and I started reading about horoscopes and reading. I'm an Aquarius, it's an air sign, and we're sort of eccentric. And so that's who I am. I'm all of those things. And I'm a mother of a Black son who's 25. And that is really the first priority of my life. Parenting is such a stressful part of life. And you have to find a way really to communicate with your children and to have and form the best bond that you can to make it less stressful. So it's stressful, but it's been enjoyable.
Right.
So the first part of me is being a mother.
Yeah, that's probably one of our, obviously becoming a parent is probably our most important job besides providing and taking care of them. But that's the job. Providing and taking care of them.
Yep.
But you didn't talk about that other part.
What's the other part?
That soldier part.
Yeah. So the soldier part, I was an Army brat growing up.
Okay.
And I think that has a lot to do with who I am today, because I'm the third child. My parents had 3 children. I have 2 older brothers. I'm the only girl. My father joined the Army. I think he was 21 when he joined. Both of my parents are from Mississippi, descendants of sharecroppers, descendants of Black gold, of slaves. My father joined the Army as a way to make money and get away. And he was able to take my mother out of Mississippi. Their first base was Okinawa, Japan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So imagine that. Imagine that, being from Mississippi and going to Japan.
Wow.
Yeah. My mother bought a kimono that I still have to this day.
That's beautiful.
I still have it. So, my brothers, they traveled more than I did because I was born in 76. I was born in Fort Riley, Kansas. We moved to Jersey. Then we went to Germany. And Germany was like one of the best Army bases my father was stationed on. Germany was the best part of my childhood, one of the best parts of my childhood. Okay. And then we came to Maryland, and he decided to retire when we were in Maryland. And that's where I went to high school, went to undergrad. I went up the road to Philadelphia for medical school. And then I did my residency training in psychiatry and neurology in Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay.
So the Army has always been a part of my life because of my father's, his influence. He was a drill sergeant at one point in time in his career.
All right.
Yeah. And he was, yeah. So that's a part of me. Just so when people, like some of my staff tell me I can be intimidating, I'm not a threatening boss. I'm not a
Right.
horrible boss.
Right. But you just
It's
want
just,
things done the
yes,
right way, and you
yes.
want it done.
Yeah. And that's probably why I'm sort of a little bit type A
Right.
personality, a little bit of OCD. But really, to have those things, that's what makes a person great. That's what gives you the ability to exceed in your career and to exceed in education. Because going to medical school, it's a lot of work. You take a lot
Absolutely.
of classes, and
Absolutely.
so you have to take on some of those traits to be successful and to get it
Y-
done.
You talk about your father being a drill sergeant. Like I said, I went in the Army when I was 17. Got out when I was 21, and I looked back and thought about drill sergeants. That's
Yeah.
nothing to be taken lightly. And
No.
the fact that you go through a training cycle for what is it, 8 weeks or so,
Yeah.
and you're up every morning,
Hmm.
basically at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock,
Yep.
and you're getting your troops out. That's
Yeah.
yeah, and having
Yeah.
to live with that.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so now I'm the command surgeon for the drill sergeant academy for the reservists up in
Look at
North
that.
Carolina, right? And so I see that it requires schooling. And I mean, I know that from before with being a psychiatrist for the military, I have to do evaluations for people to go to school because for folks to go to like drill sergeant academy, recruiting school, and some of these other specialty schools, they have to have mental health clearance.
Okay,
So I realized early in my career with the military that these people required schooling.
I
They have
didn't
to,
realize that.
yes, and they have to have a mental health clearance to go.
Okay,
And the school that's dreaded the most is Drill Sergeant Academy.
it has to be.
No one wants to go
It-
because you said 4 or 5 o'clock. They're up at like 3 a.m. trying to prep for their soldiers and stuff,
right.
you know.
Oh, I
So
trust me. I really had an admiration for my drill sergeants because you know they were about business. But the one thing that I realized was is if you did your job,
mhm.
they gave you what you needed. Now, if you were a slacker, they
Yep.
gave you what you needed
A slug.
as well. So
Yeah.
let's fast forward.
Mhm.
Okay, so you still you touched on it. You still didn't let people know you are still in the Army.
I am. Yeah. Yeah. So 9/11 happened. I was a second year medical student. I was in Delaware doing a cardiology rotation. And I don't know, probably a week or 2 weeks later, a recruiter came to the medical school and said, the Army needs physicians and we only need certain physicians. We want certain specialties. They wanted surgeons, they wanted OB-GYNs, they wanted psychiatrists. Um, they didn't want like internal medicine docs. They wanted people specializing in certain fields. And I knew I was going to go into a psychiatry residency. And I was like, I've been toying with the idea of joining the military. I had an ROTC scholarship in high school, but I didn't accept it because I was afraid that once I graduated college, that the Army would not allow me to continue onward to go to medical school.
Right.
So I had that fear. And talking to this recruiter, I was like, hey, I want to do this. And like I said, 9/11 just happened. They created this whole program for physicians so that in the beginning, it was loan repayment of $50,000. And then a couple of years later, they bumped it up to $250,000 because they weren't getting enough physicians.
Wow.
And I'm one of these people where I'm like, if I can double dip, I'm going to double dip. And my family, as I said, is military. And so,
So you got it.
yeah,
From that side, you
my
wasn't
mom worked for the federal government, and so I learned about pensions and retirement. And I was like, man, if I join the military and don't have to pay back student loans, if I don't have, because some of my colleagues have student loans that really equate to a mortgage,
right.
$200,000 and $300,000 of student loans from undergrad and, getting a master's and then getting a medical degree. And the military was paying me as well while I was in medical school. They were giving me a check every month, like I was drilling. Those years went towards my retirement. I was able to buy my first home when I was in residency. Most people were renting then. And so that established my whole outlook on investments,
Right.
Owning property so that you can flip it and make money, or having a portfolio that was diversified. So the military for me was functional for many ways. It gave me an opportunity to be patriotic. It gave me an opportunity to expand our legacy, my family's legacy, with myself being in the military after my father and my aunts and my uncles. And it made greater financial opportunities. I deployed to Iraq. I went to Afghanistan. And because of those deployments, the military gave me what's called the 9/11 GI Bill. I'm all schooled out. I can't go to school anymore. I just can't do it.
Right.
So I passed it on to my son. So I didn't have to pay for him to go to college. He got an MBA recently. The military paid for his MBA.
Wow.
So it just, in so many ways, it has enhanced my financial abilities.
Right. So, Dr. Delvena.
Mm-hmm.
So as you were coming in, I said that you were a brain surgeon. And well, not literally,
Yeah. I don't use my hands
you don't
to
use
do
your
the
hands,
surgery,
but
but
you
I use my
do
mind
surgery
yeah.
with your mind. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I know mental health has become a very big conversation,
Mm-hmm.
in particular with the pandemic. In the last, we've been still in the pandemic. We're still wearing masks. We're still having to be tested to travel. And I know you're a big traveler.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit. How has it impacted your business? And obviously, you were doing this before the pandemic hit. What
Mm-hmm.
has been the difference? Or talk about it a little bit.
So, and it's not just me. I have a team of 9 other providers. We have a wellness spa as well, where we have a couple of folks who are doing things. Mental wellness, I tell people all the time, life is challenging. Life is not meant to be easy. It is not supposed to be easy. But when you take the approach that this ain't supposed to happen, that wasn't supposed to happen, it's not supposed to feel this way, that's when you disappoint yourself and you
Right.
fall into this trap of feeling down, feeling blue. If you get up every day and know that there will be some challenge possibly, potentially awaiting you, then when it happens, it won't feel so unnerving for
Right.
you. And so um, just being out in the community, going to hospitals, going to facilities, I run into people, I run into folks who are mental health providers, and they all want to come and work for me. And the way I hired my staff, it was so very organic. I did not put out any ads. I did not seek people. I didn't ask people, hey, I'm looking for this or looking for that. Some of the psychiatric nurse practitioners, actually all of them, rotated through my office during a part of their class requirements, except for one. Dr. Mays was referred to me by one of my students. So it's an organic thing where we had contact out in the community, and I suppose our energy was congruent. Our energies were the same. There's certain types of people I don't allow in my space.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very particular about that. And I try to pass this on to my patients too. A lot of times people have the chaos that they do in their life because they allow that chaos in their life. They don't
Right.
cut it off.
Right.
And so, I talk about having a circle, having people in the inside of your circle who are positive thinkers, who are givers, who reciprocate the energy that you give to them, the time that you give to them. And the people who are negative, you got to push them all the way to the outside of the circle.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Right. And it could be your own blood.
Hey,
It could be your
family.
relative.
Oh yeah,
It could be
absolutely.
them. And so they too deserve to get kicked to the outer side of that circle. Because I just don't play that. You're not going to, I have one life to live that I know of. I don't
Right.
know that there's anything after we leave here.
Yeah,
So
well, you and I talked about that the other day.
yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it has to be the best one you can make it. So I am so grateful for the people who work on my team. I say we work together. They don't work for me. We work together. A
Right.
lot of them are entrepreneurs as well. They have their own businesses too, and they do some other things too out in the community. The thing about money is you can't allow your money to come from one source. You know that.
Well, I know that. And, we talked about that the other day as well. And it's interesting that you say that because Matthew, who's on the team,
Mm-hmm.
he shared an article that spoke about where we are today in terms of employees and people working together, and the fact that people have other interests.
Mm.
And, I have always been that person that had other interests. A good friend of mine says you got to have more than one popcorn stand.
Yeah.
And to me, work, obviously is fulfilling a goal and a means to take care of your family. But at the same time, one has to, from my perspective, embrace one's own self and those talents and energies that really makes you a fully rounded person. So
Yeah.
to hear you say that you have employees that have their own interests and entrepreneurial aspirations,
Yep.
et cetera, that's great.
Yeah.
And it's something, again, this article talked about how that's happening more. And in particular, now people get to work from home. So you got a little more, some free time in between. So you
Yeah.
have that flexibility to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. To get out there and see what exists and take chances.
Mm-hmm.
I think with social media, the spread of social media, people talking about getting out there, taking chances, doing things on your own. Why are you in here making money for someone else when you could be making money for yourself?
Yeah.
But, everyone's not going to follow that path
No.
because some people are just satisfied and they're good with being plain, being vanilla. And I don't say that in a negative or derogatory way.
Right.
Some people don't want, because extra work comes with being a creative.
Right. But
Extra
some
work
people
and
don't
stress.
have the ability.
That
Because
too.
it's one thing to, you always hear me say, it's one thing to be a great artist, a great cook, a great designer.
Yes.
But if you don't have the back of the house together, that part, you're going to fail, and then you're going to be miserable because why isn't your business growing? Because
Right.
you haven't done those things besides,
Just be great at your craft.
Exactly.
And it takes more than that,
Exactly.
to run a business. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And to your point, I think people realized that more during the pandemic. There were, and still are, a lot of fakers out here. Oh, I own my own business. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But yet on paper with the IRS or with the state of Florida.
Well, first of all, going back to my whole point about having the back of your house together. Yeah, I have this business going, but do you have an EIN number? Do you have a CPA? Do you have a marketing team? Do you have a public relations? Do you have a lawyer? Are you even formed as a?
Do you have an accountant? And are you paying quarterly taxes?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we got a couple minutes left, and what would you like to share with our audience before we shut it down?
So the first thing is, you don't have to be sad. We can all be content. I don't want to say happy because I think that's one of the things that gets people into trouble. They think they're supposed to be on cloud 9 all the time. And that's not how life works.
No.
We got to be satisfied with being content and knowing the difference between being in the middle, being content, versus feeling down in the dumps or feeling sad, which all of us will experience those days. That's just how life is. It ain't perfect, and neither is your brain. And then there's days when you may feel like you're on cloud 9, you'll feel happy. And so you have to learn your therapy too. You have to learn what makes you vibe, what gives you energy, what helps you to relax, what brings you joy.
Right.
Know what your therapy is and engage in it. And also, don't allow yourself to get into a place in life where you're by yourself and you have no one. I just talked to a patient the other day and she doesn't have anyone. She has a couple of friends, but she doesn't have a solid support group. As you're living and working and doing these things, you have to think about that. You have to build your support network. And it doesn't have to be family, blood relatives. It can be,
absolutely not.
People you grew up with, people you worked with, people you went to school with. I have a harem of, I don't want to say harem. I have a tribe. I meant to say a tribe. I talk a lot about relationships and sex. So my brain went somewhere else.
Yeah, we didn't even go there today.
I went somewhere else. I have a tribe of associates and friends from different, just different parts of my life.
I get it. A good friend of mine called me this morning, man. He said, man, let's call to tell you I love you. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But that other thing that you spoke about is a way that I've lived. I say I have one of those. I have another popcorn stand, as I said. I've been an actor and a model all of my life, in and out. And the one thing that has kept me on that even keel, you know, when you're going on castings and you're trying to get that job, you don't get them all. You might get 10%, 20%. So when they don't happen, you can't be disappointed. And then you can't be on this high, as you said, when it does happen. Oh, I'm the greatest. Or I just got, I mean, it's good to feel that, but then on the woosah.
Right.
You know, this has been amazing. I can go on like for a day or two talking to this young lady.
Yeah, because we didn't even define Brainlove. You know, Brainlove is an acronym, but next time.
Next time we'll get into Brainlove. Or just go to our website. What is your website? Where how can they find you?
Yeah, it's drdelvena.help. It's D as in Delta, EL, V as in Victor, EN as in November, A.help, HELP.
And you can find out about Brainlove. You can find out more about what she's doing. And if you want to know more about the Chamber, go to www.m-dcc.org or call the Chamber at 305-751-8648. Ask for Beverly and become a member.